The night was draped in an inky shroud, and the road stretched ahead, a sinuous ribbon of asphalt weaving through the darkness. My hands gripped the steering wheel, and my eyes squinted against the glare of headlights in the distance. I had always enjoyed driving at night, finding solace in the quiet hum of the engine and the soothing rhythm of the road. Little did I know that this night's drive would lead me down a twisted path of unforeseen events. It all started when I decided to take a shortcut through the forest to reach my destination sooner. The GPS had suggested it, and I was feeling adventurous. I veered off the well-lit highway onto a narrow, tree-lined road that wound its way into the heart of the woods. The moon cast eerie shadows on the dense foliage, and the whispers of the leaves seemed to beckon me deeper into the unknown. As I continued down the winding road, my headlights sliced through the darkness like a surgeon's scalpel, revealing fleeting glimpses of the forest's secrets. A sense of unease began to creep over me, but I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks in the night. After all, I was an experienced driver, and I had navigated many unfamiliar roads. Minutes turned into hours, and I realized that I had not seen another car or a sign of civilization in what felt like an eternity. The forest around me had grown even denser, with towering trees looming on either side of the road. Panic stirred in my chest, and I reached for my phone to check the GPS, only to find it had lost signal. I was truly alone in the wilderness, guided solely by the feeble glow of my headlights. My heart raced, and I contemplated turning back, but the thought of retracing my steps through the labyrinthine forest filled me with dread. I convinced myself that continuing forward was the best option, hoping that the road would eventually lead me back to civilization. Little did I know that the road had other plans. As I pressed on, the road seemed to stretch on endlessly, each curve and bend feeling like a cruel jest from some unseen force. The forest had grown even darker, and the trees appeared to close in on me, their branches clawing at the edges of my vision. The feeling of being watched, of being an intruder in a world that did not belong to me, intensified. Then, the road began to change. It twisted and turned with a malevolent intent, leading me deeper into the forest's heart. My headlights revealed strange symbols etched into the asphalt, symbols that seemed ancient and foreboding. Fear gnawed at my sanity, and I wondered if I had stumbled upon some forgotten, cursed place. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the car's engine coughed and sputtered, its headlights flickering before plunging me into complete darkness. Panic surged through me as I tried to restart the engine, but it remained stubbornly silent. I was stranded in the heart of the forest, surrounded by an oppressive silence that was broken only by the distant howl of a lone wolf. Feeling my way through the darkness, I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest. My flashlight revealed a bleak landscape of gnarled trees and overgrown underbrush. I knew that I had no choice but to venture into the forest on foot, hoping to find help or a way out. Clutching the flashlight tightly, I plunged into the darkness. My footsteps echoed through the stillness of the forest as I stumbled over roots and fallen branches. Fear and exhaustion gnawed at me, but I pushed forward, determined to escape this nightmarish maze. It felt as though I had been walking for hours when I stumbled upon a clearing in the woods. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of ancient stones, their surfaces covered in strange runes that pulsed with an otherworldly light. At the center of the circle, a small fire burned, casting eerie shadows on the surrounding trees. I approached cautiously, my heart in my throat, and realized that I was not alone. A group of figures cloaked in tattered robes stood around the fire, their faces hidden in the shadows. They chanted in a language I couldn't understand, their voices echoing through the forest like a sinister incantation. Fear gripped me, and I turned to flee, but it was too late. They had surrounded me, their gauntleted hands reaching out to grab me. I struggled, but their grip was like iron, and I was powerless against their strength. They dragged me to the center of the stone circle, where a sense of dread and foreboding filled the air. The fire crackled and hissed, casting flickering light on their faces. Their eyes were cold and emotionless, and I realized that I had stumbled upon something ancient and sinister, something beyond human understanding. One of the figures stepped forward, holding a gleaming dagger in their hand. My heart raced as I watched them approach, the blade glinting in the firelight. I pleaded for mercy, for an explanation, but they remained silent, their eyes fixed on some unseen horizon. As the dagger drew closer, I closed my eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But instead of pain, I felt a sudden rush of cold air and heard a deafening roar. Opening my eyes, I saw a massive shadow swooping down from the night sky, its wings outstretched like a monstrous, living storm. The figures around me screamed in terror and released their grip, allowing me to stumble away. The creature, a gigantic owl with feathers as dark as midnight, descended upon the circle of stones, its eyes blazing with an otherworldly light. It screeched with a sound that shattered the silence of the forest, causing the figures to scatter in all directions. The fire was extinguished, and darkness once again enveloped the clearing. I watched in awe as the owl circled above, its wingspan blotting out the stars. It seemed to be protecting me, driving away the malevolent figures that had surrounded me. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the owl soared into the night sky and disappeared into the darkness. I stood alone in the clearing, trembling with fear and wonder. The forest had returned to its eerie stillness, and the stone circle now seemed like a relic of a long-forgotten nightmare. With shaky legs, I made my way back to my stranded car, hoping against hope that the engine would miraculously come to life. To my astonishment, it did. The engine roared to life, and the headlights pierced the darkness once more. I wasted no time in speeding away from that cursed forest, back onto the winding road that had led me into this nightmare. The road seemed different now, more familiar, and I followed it without hesitation. Eventually, I emerged from the forest and found myself on a well-lit highway. The night had not loosened its grip, but the terror of the forest was behind me. I drove on, my heart still racing, my mind unable to comprehend the events that had transpired. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, I finally reached my destination. I parked my car and sat there for a moment, trying to make sense of the night's events. Had it all been a hallucination, a fever,